Okay, we are joined now with Max Hall, and it looks like you're in an office. So I think everyone is pretty well aware that you and Ty Detmer and your brother-in-law Dennis Pitt are all coaching at ALA Queen Creek, and it looks like you also work there. That's your full-time job, right? Like you are working. Are you just at the campus, or are you in the district office, or kind of what's your day-to-day now?
Yeah, so I'm at campus. My official title is the assistant athletic director. So I handle a lot of the junior high sports, and then I help a lot with the high school sports. We just hired a new athletic director who is unfortunately having some bad health problems. So I'm kind of stepping up as the athletic director right now. So I have a lot going on. I'm busy, but being on campus, being around the kids, not just the football players, but just the students in general, and helping the other sports it's fulfilling, man. Like I really do believe I'm doing what I'm supposed to and I'm where I'm
It's
supposed to
awesome.
be. So yeah, it's a blast.
Well, that was awesome. And I actually, I currently, my wife is from Yuma and we're living there right now until our house gets finished up in Queen Creek. And so actually I've gone to a couple games because you guys used to be in the same region as Yuma Catholic. And she was like one of 3 LDS students at the high school. So I've been to a couple games and you guys have, I mean, you beat Saguaro last week, right? And that was
almost beat them.
Oh, you lost.
Almost beat them. We lost.
That's a big win.
But that's a huge, like, Saguaro. That's like playing for the people in Utah. That's like playing Tippview or Bingham. Like that's a big deal. Yeah. And going from, just a few years ago, you guys weren't even an AIA school. You were in the like CAA, whatever it is for the smaller like charter schools, like going basically from 8-man football to knocking off Tippview or Bingham or East or Corner Canyon type program in just a few years is a huge climb.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, Saguaro, I think they were 38th in the country. They were, I think number 2 or 3 behind a few schools here, like Chandler, who's I think in the top 10 in the country. So, I mean, they're definitely a big time school. Everybody thought it'd be a 60-0, but, we lost 20-14 and we were right there at the end. And so more than anything, I was just proud of our kids. They were bigger than us. They were stronger, faster, everything, but our kids played hard. And you can't fault their heart and effort and energy that they put into that game. So it was one of the only times after a game losing where I still kind of had a smile on my face because I was so happy with how our kids showed up and performed. So we're getting there. The program's growing, and even losing a game like that, but being able to compete with some of the top teams, not only in the state and the nation, it's fulfilling, and I think we're on the right direction. So it's fun. I look forward to see how the kids come out this week.
You guys have a kid, a BYU commit this year, and Brooks Jones, that I think kind of fits that mold a little bit of what you just said, Max. So kind of that, he's smaller. I think he's relatively new to the game of football. What's he going to bring to BYU? I mean, he brings the fiery attitude, the underdog attitude. I think you have to hang with Saguaro like that. What's Brooks Jones like for BYU fans who don't know much about him?
Yeah, Brooks is great. So Brooks's older brother, Dean, is at BYU right now. And we have another player that is from ALA, Donovan Hanna, who's also at BYU. Okay. It was really cool to see them at the game on the sideline. So, but Brooks, he didn't even play football. He's a senior right now, and this is his first year playing football. And the offer to Brooks was, I think, based on his potential and his upside, which is huge. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7". He's got a big old wingspan. He's a really good basketball player. And, he kind of has the moves and the jukes, and he's good with his hands. So he just needs to continue to put on weight. And I think by the time he gets to BYU, gets in the college weight program, gets on their nutrition program, and he can put on 30, 40 pounds, he's going to be a monster D end, I think. So he's already learned so much and improved so much this year that I think he's going to be a very solid player for BYU in the future.
And that's kind of similar to what Donovan Hanna was. Like Donovan's beefed up and he's playing tackle now, but he was a 6'6", 220-pound tight end coming out of high school. And so it's, there's something to be said for just taking those athletes and, just packing weight on them, which we do actually in our agenda here. Jeff actually pulled some pictures, which you've put on some weight. It seems like you've channeled more of your focus. Like that's kind of your frustration is going.
Whoa. You can't say Max has put on weight. I've put on weight. You look at me. I've put on weight. Max hasn't put on weight. This is something. This is Hulk. This is different.
So we've got a picture that you posted at the gym with a couple of guys, and next to that photo shoot that you did with Dennis in Austin when you were at BYU.
Oh,
and it's like
guys,
if you
leave that one out of it.
If you look at those pictures, it's like you're not even the same person.
No, and you know what? This is what it is. One of the guys in that picture, his name's Chris Rucker, and oddly enough, I actually talked to him this morning. He reached out to me. He was a counselor at the rehab facility that I went to, and he was really instrumental in helping me. Like, he would get my butt up and be like, "We're going to the gym this morning." We had one-on-one conversations, and I just kind of like caught, the itch of working out in a different way than you would work out to prepare to play, a football season. This is all beach muscle lifting. You know what I'm saying? But what he taught me is the gym can keep me sober, man. And so if it gives me something to release those endorphins and a goal to work towards. And, here's the other thing, guys. If you look at that picture of my mugshot, I cringe every time I see it. I was skinny. I was frail. I think I was 180 pounds at the time. Now I'm about 215, but I look at that person in that picture and I think to myself, I never want to look or like that person again. And so another part of it was changing my image and being physically healthy. And like I said, it's one of the things that I have to do every day to keep me on track. And like I said, the gym can keep you sober, man. And I believe it.
And I think it's important to kind of underscore, right, that all addiction is a symptom of unmet emotional needs, right? And so wherever you can't just quit, you have to throw yourself into something good. And that's what you are doing with your foundation that you started, Addict to Athlete, right? And it's, you found that like that worked for you. There's other 12-step programs, different things, but you found that getting into taking care of yourself physically has been where you can take out your frustration and when you're having a bad day to go clear your mind. And so kind of tell us about what you are doing and kind of, I don't know, like how big is Addict to Athlete now? I know you have your Agents of Recovery podcast where you're going through stories and sharing those stories. So kind of what are you doing there and what is kind of the goal? Obviously, well, we know what the goal is, but what is kind of the process of, getting involved with that?
Yeah. So Addict to Athlete is run by Coach Blue Robinson, and he's been running that for years. And he's a therapist, and he's real big on that side of it. Let's run marathons. Let's mountain bike. Let's work out. Let's change your lifestyle of what it was before when you were an addict. Let's make a new you. And so I went on his podcast, maybe a year or so after, rehab, and just really liked the guy. And have always kind of stayed in touch with him and wanted to be a part of what he's doing. The other guy on our podcast, Brock Bevel, has his own thing called Chase the Vase. And he's a therapist and works with other addicts to help get them into recovery and change their lives. So I did a podcast with both of them. And then Brock reached out to me and said, "Max, I think we can help a lot of people. And I think we want to share this message and bring light on it and talk about it in a genuine and open and raw way, because people will relate to it and we can help people by just talking about this and shedding light." So us three got together and said, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's start it." And that's how the Agents of Recovery podcast started out. So I'm kind of partners with, not really partners, but I work with Addict to Athlete and Blue. And we've kind of connected Addict to Athlete and Agents of Recovery together. But Agents of Recovery, it's its own podcast. So the whole goal here was to help others. And, we weren't in this in the beginning necessarily to make money or anything like that. It's like, hey, all us three have gone through this. And we're some of the lucky few that have been able to come out on the other side. And we have an opportunity here to share our experiences and our story with other people. And so within the first 3 or 4 podcasts, we started getting a ton of following and feedback of how much it was helping others. And the podcast isn't necessarily, we're not all the time talking about drugs and addiction. I mean, we've had episodes about relationships, communication, finding your why, leadership, and how that all connects into recovery and becoming a better person. So a lot of our followers too are not addicts. But yet again, everybody knows somebody who's struggled with addiction. And if you don't understand addiction, I think we do a really good job of explaining how it works and explaining what an addict's going through so people can better understand that. So that's the light we're trying to spread. I think we stand up for and speak for addicts all over, and share a message of hope and recovery, that we, in our saying, you no longer have to be a victim of this thing, of addiction. Like, you can overcome it and change your life around and be an agent of recovery, right? And so that's the whole kind of theme and process and thought process of the podcast.
It's such an awesome cause, an awesome organization. I think a lot of BYU fans saw the fireside that you did in Utah County. I think it was up in Alpine here several months ago, and just the way. I mean, this is a BYU podcast. We could delve into some spiritual stuff a little bit more, I guess. But the way that you're vulnerable about that in that kind of a setting, I've always had this belief that everybody has whatever demons it is. Everybody's got them. If we don't talk about that, then they're just demons. But if we talk about it, then it's a really powerful, powerful story, a lesson, a whatever it can be for people who need that. And Max, your ability to be vulnerable and transparent about what you went through is absolutely inspiring. I've never been addicted, but I felt just emotionally connected to your story because of how transparent you were about it. So on behalf of everybody like me who listens to your show, who knows your story, just thank you for being that transparent. And we want to help that cause as well, because it's such a magnificent cause.
Man, I really appreciate you saying that, because I had to decide early on how I was going to handle this, and as public as it was and everything. So I decided, look, I don't think I have any other choice other than to own this thing. This is what happened to me. I'm going to own it. I'm going to be transparent about my mistakes. And hopefully I can turn this, we always talk about turning the mess into a message. I said, all this stuff is happening to me, and I can't just let it happen to me without a reason or without a purpose or a way that I can use it in a positive light. And so every chance or every opportunity I get, I'll share my story. I don't necessarily like doing it. I don't like reliving that part of my life. It's hard to do. I get emotional talking about it, but it's worth it to help other people, like we keep talking about, and the feedback I get from it. So yeah, I got asked to do that fireside a few months ago, and they ended up recording it because of COVID, and they live streamed it, and the thing just blew up. But I just tried to be honest. This is what I went through. This is what I did. This is how I felt. This is what I did to overcome it. This is what I'm doing now. And it was a long, painful process of recovery. We talk about stopping the use of drugs was the easy part.
Yeah.
Right? Like diving into sobriety and facing your demons and digging up stuff and bringing things to the surface and being brutally honest with everybody. And I had to gain back trust of my wife and family members and friends. And so that was a long process, but it's a doable process. And that's what we want people to know who are struggling, is that it is doable. You got to be able to be open and honest and do the work, but you can come out on the other side.
And I think kind of, also because we can hit on this, like Jeff said, because this is a BYU podcast, right? Like that is that vulnerability, right? Like I think you showed, like in the scriptures when it says, like, talks about godly sorrow, right? Like you were willing to take whatever consequence came because you wanted to make it right for your family. You wanted to make it right for everyone else that you love and that loves you, and, get it right with God. And that's, like that is that level of vulnerability, right? Like, and everything that's happened this week, I think that was one thing that just kept coming to my mind is, right, like it's right, like the church, right, everything, like you've repented, you've moved on, it's in the past, you've owned it, and you've dealt with it. So it's like, if the Lord doesn't remember it, who am I to like hold that against you still? And that's something I think that, moving fully past it is something, and just being able to share that, like Jeff said, is something that we need to be much more open about, because yes, like yours was on the extreme end, but it's, everybody has something that they like, nobody is perfect. And rather than, kicking people when they're down, it would be so much better to be like, hey, this is what I'm going through and I need help. Right. And that's if we were much less judgmental and just more like, hey, like, it's when someone says that they're going through something, they're reaching out for help and they're reaching out their hand. And so we should obviously grab it and pull them up and help them however we can.
Yeah. And that's well said. And again, part of owning it is that vulnerability that we're talking about. And, if people want to touch me up for that, great. That's on them. But if my vulnerability can open up a light and open up the minds of people about addiction and teach them about it and give hope, then that's exactly what I want to do. And you're right too, without getting too spiritual, I had to really reconnect with the higher power and rely on the atonement of Christ. Like that was a big part of it for me. There's some people who maybe that's not their higher power, but that was mine. And I relied on that big time, along with the work that I put into myself. So it can be done. And the vulnerability thing, I'm okay with it because that's me. That's who I am. And I'm okay with who I am. I've come to a place where I love myself, and I've gotten rid of some of the guilt and shame, and it allowed me to move forward.
That's awesome. Now I think that's a good wrap up point on that. So we do kind of want to talk about some football stuff. So obviously BYU's playing ASU this weekend. You signed with ASU out of high school. I don't remember, did you redshirt there before your mission?
Yeah.
Right. So you spent a year at ASU. Kind of what was that path of your decision to transfer, or what was it like being at ASU, for a season before you went, and kind of what do you think about the game this Saturday?
Well, I'm still a big ASU fan as well. I grew up going to all the games with my grandpa and my uncle, who their jerseys are retired in the stadium. You got Whizzer White and Danny White. So we're a big ASU family. And I can even remember the family making shirts that on the front of the shirt, it said Angel by Day, and on the back, it was Devil by Night. I don't know who made those shirts, but I remember them wearing it to the game, which I thought was pretty cool. So I look forward to the game. Obviously, I'm going to root for the Cougs, but, starting at ASU and having that experience was great. I went on my mission. When I came home, the reason for the transfer had nothing to do with football. It had everything to do with me wanting to get into a better environment and put myself in the right place for me to succeed. And I am beyond grateful for the experience that I had at BYU, both on and off the field. So it ended up being the right choice.
So when you look at this game, I mean, if you're a fan of both teams, sounds like you still follow ASU. What do you see on the field? We have to ask, when we have actual football minds that come in onto the podcast, we have to ask, because we think we know, but we don't know anything. What do you actually see when you watch these two teams play, and how do you think this shakes out on Saturday?
So I've seen a little bit of ASU, and I try to go by and talk to the coaches and the team when I can. And obviously I've seen the two BYU games, and I was at the last one. I was very, very impressed with BYU. I was way impressed with the defense and the scheme and the preparation that went into that game. And then also the offense got better. You can see improvement from game one to game two. You can see the confidence in Jaren Hall. You can see he didn't make any mistakes in the last game, but at the same time, he used his feet to get out of certain situation and make big plays. So I think ASU has their hands full. I know ASU does have some studs. I really like their quarterback. They have some weapons offensively, but I think if BYU's defense can step up like they did last week, if Jaren Hall can take care of the football like he did and make those critical plays that he made, I think the Cougs come out on top. But I expect this to be a close game and a little bit of a dogfight, but I think Cougars have the edge on it.
Now you coach, you're involved with QB Elite as well with Ty and Dustin. So I think Jaren this last offseason, he was working with John Beck out in California, right? But I don't remember, did you ever work with him previously, like when he was in high school, and anything with your involvement of QB Elite? Or
so I think I may have been at a camp once that he was there that years ago. And I can't remember if he was there as a college player or as a high school kid. It's been a while, but he's been around QB Elite.
Right.
And I've heard nothing but great things about him from Dustin and Ty and how awesome it is working with him. He still does work with QB Elite. I know he spent some time with John Beck, who's, obviously I love John and I support him. And he's also one of the best out there at mentoring and training quarterbacks. So I think Jaren's just trying to get all the help he can get. and all the training and be prepared for this situation. But, QB Elite is such a special deal because it focuses on quarterback playing football, but I think they get the bigger picture that there's more to life than football. It's about being a great young man and being respectful, being a good son, brother, whatever, good standing member of the community, and preaching those principles outside of just how to throw a football meant a lot to me. And so that's why I'm so proud to be a part of QB Elite.
And I think there's nothing, right? I think that's something too, right? In kind of in your situation that is very important, because a lot of athletes, right? Like once your whole life and your whole identity is wrapped up in being an athlete, and when that goes away, you're like, I don't know what to do now. I was Max Hall, the quarterback, and now I'm not that anymore. And right, and you're not, and that happens a lot with a lot of former professional athletes, because you started throwing a football, playing flag football when you were 6. Yeah. And now you're 30, and what else are you doing with your? It's like it's all gone. And so I think that's really awesome to hear that they're doing that.
Yeah.
And so okay, so I just wasn't sure if you're like had seen kind of his progression of how much you'd seen from him when he was in high school or early when he got back from his mission versus now, and how much you'd been around it. But what was it like kind of being back? I don't know. Was the game on Saturday? Like, when was the last time you went to a game in Provo?
It had been 6 or 7 years since I had been back to a game in Provo. And it's not that I necessarily, I had been to some other BYU games. They played U of A down here one year and went to a Vegas Bowl, I think, one year, but it was the first time being back. And there definitely was some anxiety going back, because I didn't know what it was going to be like with BYU or Utah fans. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, I am so glad I went. I wasn't going to go to the game until I got a call from Jack Dumani, who's head of football operations. He's, he calls me, "Hey bro, are you coming to the game? We want you to run the flag out." And I'm like, "Oh, that would be really cool." And I said, "Hey, can my son run out with me? If he can run out with me, I'm in." So they said, "Yeah, absolutely." And so we ended up going to the game, and not only a great experience for me, but for my wife and my kid, because the fans were so awesome. And I'm talking about BYU and Utah fans. Everybody that I ran into wanted to take a picture or say hi or shake my hand or tell me they're happy with where I'm at. And it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming when I first walked out on the field and the fans cheered. As I was walking up the steps to my seat, the section stood up and cheered. And it was a special moment for me. I wasn't expecting that. And for me to have that experience with both fans, both sides of the rivalry, and to still feel that love from BYU was, something I will never forget. And I know my family won't forget it either. So very thankful for that, and just feel blessed to be in that situation.
That's awesome. Super cool. And I'm super glad to hear that. And hopefully, if this is the start of Max Hall becoming a fixture in Provo, because we talk to a lot of BYU fans, and you're up there. Like, I won't ask you to put yourself like where you fall in the BYU tier of quarterbacks, but when it comes to BYU fans, you're right up there on the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks.
He's won more games than any other starting quarterback at BYU. So that's got to count for something.
Your story, everything, just amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's funny because you brought this up earlier, but Ty Detmer's the head coach here for the football team. So I'm athletic director, offensive coordinator, and it has been so much fun working with him. He's got such a great football mind. The game planning is a blast. He's awesome with the kids. He represents American Leadership Academy and what we stand for. There couldn't be a better guy for the job. And obviously what he's done in his career football wise brings a very good light to the school and helps us with kids wanting to come here and play and building our program. So, but it's fun because we joke around with each other, and I'll be like, "Hey Ty, how does it feel to be the second best BYU quarterback of all time?" And he's like, "Yeah, that Jim McMahon." You know what I mean? I'm like, "No, that's not what I'm talking about." So I always, because I'm pretty much second to Ty in all the stat categories. I mean, Ty just had a phenomenal career. And I'll say to him, I'll be like, "Hey, but man, the one stat that counts are those wins, right, Ty?" You know what I mean? And, then he'll make a comment like, "Oh yeah, I'm just mad I only won one Heisman and not two." Stuff like that. So we go back and forth, but it's all love and banter. And, like I said, it's a true blessing being there with Ty and everything that comes with that. But I appreciate you guys bringing that up. I think there's been some great quarterbacks at BYU, obviously, and to even be mentioned with some of those guys is an honor.
And it seemed like there was a little bit of a lull there, right? Like we had Taysom for a few years, but we were on, there was obviously all through the 80s, and it kind of felt like with you and John back to back, we're back in that rhythm. And now it kind of seems like with Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall, we're back in that. And it's, Jacob Conover is no slouch either. So it seems like we're set up for a good long time.
Yes.
So what was it like, I guess, in your being around the program? Obviously you played under Bronco Mendenhall, and kind of now with Kalani and like an entirely new staff, what was, I guess, kind of what changes have you seen that are different, or is there a different vibe around the program, or just, they just obviously Bronco and Kalani have very different approaches, and one's not necessarily better than the other. They're just different. But I guess kind of what is going back as a alumni, what was that like?
I love Bronco Mendenhall. He's my guy. He was my coach, and I was willing to, they say run through a brick wall for him. And he supported me and encouraged me. And I'm really grateful he was my head coach. When I first met Kalani, I went to a spring practice and I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know how it was going to go. He was at Utah, when I was at BYU coaching. So he coached against me. And it's crazy because I went to the practice and he kind of popped his head up and saw me from across the field. And he came sprinting over. And he said, Max, he put his arms up. He gave me a huge hug and he goes, man, I love you. I'm glad you're here. You represent us. You're part of the family, and welcomed me in right away. And Kalani just has an energy and enthusiasm that's just contagious. And what he's done so far as a coach at BYU, I think is phenomenal. And he is the right guy for the job at this time. He's building a great program. BYU's going into the Big 12. Like, it's a great time to be a Cougar right now, and Kalani Sitake leading the way is the right move, man. I'm very impressed with Coach Sitake.
And I think that's probably one of my favorite things about him is that he is all in on BYU, right? Like sometimes you hear stories about at other schools where there's like new coach comes in and there's kind of some friction between guys that played for the old coach and like, oh, what is this relationship going to be like? But like, he doesn't care, right? Like if you put on the blue and white, you're one of his guys, and it doesn't matter. Like, you could have been playing for, I don't even know, like what's his George Romney and like, or Marion, whatever, in like 1920, and he'd still be like, oh, you're my guy. And so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, the last thing, Max, before we let you go, one of our listeners, they asked us a question about a story that was published, I think, by ESPN about you after your first game. And I think it was Larry Fitzgerald. He said, when you came in, your first game in the NFL, you entered the huddle. Larry Fitzgerald said something to the tune of, hey, he's a man of God, so we won't repeat what he said. But we were surprised the BYU guy had to say it. What was that huddle like, Max? Like, what was that energy like?
So you guys need to know there's a rule. There's two places on this earth where your language can be a little bit more aggressive, okay? The first place is the football field, and the second place is the golf course, especially for me with my game, okay? But I basically got in that huddle, and without being vulgar, I said, all right, you guys, we're going right down the field right now, and we're going to score. And obviously there was more to that, but it was funny to see the guys look up at me and just be like, okay, this guy means business. He's ready to go. We got some confidence, let's go score. And that was the whole point of the comment, was just to get the guys fired up and let them know everything's going to be fine. Let's get this. So that's funny that it got brought up because Larry making that comment's funny.
It was like one line in an article from 2010, so I'm surprised that
it made an impact, man.
Remembered it. But do you still talk to Larry or any of the guys that you played with when your little cup of coffee that you had in the NFL?
Yeah, I do. Not a lot, but I'll reach out to him once in a while, send him a text, and some of the other guys I played with. And Larry's one of my all-time favorite guys. Because of my relationship with him, I think he's one of the best receivers of all time, which he is. Mm-hmm. And to be able to play with him, I remember the first time I threw him a ball, he made some crazy one-handed catch, and I'm just like, this guy's amazing, his work ethic, everything. So Yeah, I once in a while, and I ran into somebody who was around Larry on a golf course or something, and Larry had brought me up and was talking about me and said good things. So nothing but respect and love for Larry Fitzgerald. He's one of my all-time favorites.
We do have our Max Hall Loves Me shirts up on our site now, and everything that all the proceeds from that we're going to be donating to Athlete or Addict to Athlete. And so we'll have to find a way. We need to find a way to get Larry one of those shirts and get him to take a picture for us. So figure out his address and send it to us, and we'll get him a shirt sent his way.
I'll see what I could do. That would be great.
Cool. Well, thanks again for hopping on, and we'll let you go. And do you have anything else that you want to share with our listeners, share with Cougar Nation?
This is basically what I would say is this. One of our key phrases, and I know Coach Blue loves this phrase, he's all about turning your mess into a message. And what has happened over the last 2 days with this whole shirt thing and everything that's gone on, I decided that we're going to turn this into a message. And we're going to shed light on addiction and recovery, because that's what's most important. It's people's lives and their struggles and mental health or addiction or anything that they might be going through is more important than any football game or any comments made in a press conference. You know what I'm saying? And that's all fun, but we need to take addiction seriously, mental health seriously, because people suffer from it. So if we can turn this mess into a message, shed some light on it, and help others, whether that be through the podcast or counseling, or even just making people aware of it, then that's what I want to do, because that's the most important thing in this whole situation.
Well said.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you. And thanks again. And give them hell this week. Who do you guys have on Friday?
We have Buckeye. Buckeye's coming to our place. They got some good athletes. Should be a good game, but I'm excited to see our kids bounce back from last week.
Awesome. Thanks again for hopping on. And hopefully this isn't the last time that we get to talk to you.
Anytime. Bring me on, guys. It's great. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.